Most people think Warren Buffett got rich by picking stocks. That's like saying Michael Jordan got rich by putting a ball through a hoop. It's technically true, but it misses everything that actually matters. And if you're sitting there right now, 36 years old, wondering whether the math still works for someone like you, I need you to understand what Buffett actually did, because it's not what you think, and the real lesson changes everything about how you should be handling your money right now. Here's something that'll mess with your head. Warren Buffett's net worth today is somewhere north of $130 billion, dollars, but 99% of that money was made after his 52nd birthday. Let me say that differently. The man who's considered the greatest investor of all time had less than $2 billion at age 52. Which sounds insane, right? 2 billion is a lot of money, but compared to 130 billion, it's a rounding error. The overwhelming majority of his wealth came from just doing the same thing over and over and over again for decades after most people would have already retired. That's not stock picking genius. That's compounding. Now here's where this gets personal. Buffett bought his first stock at age 11. He filed his first tax return at age 13. By the time he was 30, he had $1 million, which adjusted for inflation is about 10 million in today's money. So yeah, he had a head start. You and I didn't buy our first stock at 11. We were watching cartoons. But here's what I need you to hear. The head start matters less than you think. Because even with that head start, the real money didn't show up until decades later. The compounding curve doesn't care when you start. It cares how long you stay on it. Let me show you the math that should keep you up tonight, but in a good way. If you're 36 and you invest $700 a month into a broad index fund, earning roughly 10% average annual returns, which is what the S&P 500 has averaged historically, by age 67 you'd have about $1.8 million. That's not a guess. That's just math. 1.8 million from 700 a month. But here's the thing that bends people's brains. Of that 1.8 million, only about 260,000 came from your actual contributions. The rest, over $1.5 million, is compounding, doing the work for you. Your money making money, making money, making money. That's the Buffett playbook. Not finding the next Amazon, not timing the bottom. Just staying invested with relentless consistency while time does the heavy lifting. Buffett himself said his wealth came from living in America, some lucky genes and compound interest. That's a direct quote. The greatest investor ever is telling you his secret isn't intelligence. It's patience married to math. But let's talk about what almost nobody mentions. Buffett didn't just invest. He controlled his cost of living like it was a strategic weapon. The man still lives in the same house in Omaha, Nebraska that he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He eats McDonald's for breakfast. He drinks cherry Coke. This isn't some folksy personality quirk. This is the engine of the whole strategy. Every dollar he didn't spend was a dollar that went back into the compounding machine. And over 50 or 60 years, that discipline is worth tens of billions. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cool, but I'm not Warren Buffett. I've got a mortgage. I've got a car payment. I've got a kid who needs new shoes every 3 months because their feet won't stop growing. I hear you. But the principle scales down perfectly. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is the single most powerful number in your financial life. Not your salary, not your portfolio balance. The gap. Buffett's gap was enormous because he kept his spending absurdly low relative to his income. Your version of that doesn't have to be eating McDonald's every day. It just has to be intentional. Here's a framework you can use tonight. Take your monthly after-tax income. Subtract your non-negotiable expenses, meaning housing, food, transportation, insurance, minimum debt payments. Whatever's left is your gap. Now here's the question that matters. How much of that gap is going into investments versus just leaking into stuff you won't remember buying 3 months from now? If you can move even an extra $200 a month from the leak column into the investment column, the 30-year difference is staggering. $200 extra a month at 10% average returns over 31 years is roughly $500,000. That's $500,000 from what feels like pocket change right now. The second thing Buffett did that you can steal is he almost never sold. This sounds simple, but it's brutally hard in practice. In 2008, the market dropped about 57% from peak to trough. Buffett didn't sell. He bought. He was writing billion-dollar checks while everyone else was panicking. You don't need to write billion-dollar checks, but you do need to not touch your 401k when the market drops 30% and every headline is screaming that the economy is finished. Because here's the pattern. Every single major crash in the history of the S&P 500 has been followed by a recovery to new highs. Every single one. The people who got wiped out weren't the ones who held. They were the ones who sold at the bottom and locked in their losses permanently. So here's your decision framework tonight. 3 questions. First, what's my gap? Meaning the actual dollar amount between what I bring home and what I must spend. Second, how much of that gap am I investing consistently every single month with no exceptions? And third, do I have a plan to do absolutely nothing when the market eventually drops 30 or 40%? Because it will. That's not a prediction, that's just history. And your plan for that moment needs to exist before the moment arrives. Because in the middle of a crash, your brain will betray you. Every instinct will scream sell. The plan you write down tonight is the thing that saves you from yourself. There's one more piece of the Buffett story that I think matters more than all the money. When asked about his definition of success, he didn't talk about billions. He said he measures success by how many people who he wants to love him actually do love him. That's a man who spent 60-plus years building one of the greatest fortunes in human history, telling you the money was never the point. The freedom was the point. The ability to spend his days doing exactly what he wanted, with exactly who he wanted, on his own terms. That's what compounding actually buys you, not a yacht, not a mansion. Time, autonomy, the ability to be fully present for the people you care about without the low-grade financial anxiety humming in the background of every moment. You're 36, you're not behind. You're right at the part of the curve where the math starts getting interesting. The next 30 years of consistent investing will look nothing like the last 10. That's not motivational fluff. That's how exponential growth actually works. It's boring and slow and invisible for years, and then it's not. Buffett was worth less than $1 billion at age 56. He's worth over $130 billion today. The curve is the same curve you're on. The only question is whether you'll stay on it. So tonight, after this video, open your brokerage app or pull up your 401k. Find your gap number. Set up an automatic investment if you haven't already. And then do the hardest thing in all of personal finance. Leave it alone and let time work.